A show duct taped together by broken promises and hopes and dreams. Recorded in the corner of Wade's dirty bathroom. Get ready for WMBT.
The police and immigration, also known as ICE, is the topic of today's video thingy. And in the interest of full disclosure, I may be a little bit biased. You see, I've been put in jail 5 times against my will and once detained by ICE after my Colombian holiday. So I have some experience in both policing and immigration. And I'm not kidding about what I just shared, by the way. Now, I was never convicted of anything other than just trying to make law enforcement laugh, which apparently they don't really like doing. So, to be fair, I'm using AI to help me stay objective and be able to provide real facts. Many of us Europeans who've moved to the United States noticed something pretty quickly. That American law enforcement seem to lack the ability to smile. In much of Europe, cops are a little bit more community-orientated, approachable, friendly even. Like you could theoretically have a beer with them after a traffic stop. There are approximately 800,000 police officers here in the United States, just waiting to jump out at you. The average starting salary for a city or county police officer is around $50,000 a year, depending on the location. The police academy training generally lasts between 4 to 6 months, which feels more like an orientation than training for an actual career. And roughly 25% of applicants are rejected. There are about 22,000 ICE officers in the United States, and their starting salary is also around $50,000. Training for ICE agents is about 6 weeks long, and for some reason, AI can't find the applicant rejection rates, which means either they're classified or no one really wants to talk about it. The general favorability over the past few years for cops is around 50% and a little less for ICE agents. Interestingly though, 40 years ago, that number was around 65% and the crime rate was higher. So something went wrong somewhere. Believe it or not, I love guns. I've been lucky enough to receive a fair amount of tactical training from very serious military professionals. And even with that background, I wouldn't feel comfortable walking around in an urban environment with a handgun the way law enforcement officers do. Handguns are actually a terrible tool in dense urban settings that's not a war zone. They're hard to shoot accurately under stress, and even when you hit your target, bullets don't just stop. They actually go through things. They skip, they ricochet, and they hit things you didn't necessarily intend to hit. So, giving a law enforcement officer a handgun with a few months of basic training is probably not the wisest thing to do. SWAT has to train constantly, and regular cops just requalify occasionally. That's like training to be an Olympic swimmer just watching YouTube. It's not exactly going to prepare you if and when you need to use a shooter. Law enforcement officers are often criticized for having a poor bedside manner. And that's one of the reasons people protest them. That being said, throwing rocks at cops or driving cars at them isn't exactly going to improve relationships. Regardless of the uniform, the guy with the gun is right, even if they're wrong. Anything other than that will probably result in a pretty bad day. Stats show less than 1% of traffic stops result in an actual altercation, but that doesn't make getting pulled over fun. Police exist to serve and protect. So when there's a drunk driver swerving all over the road, for example, it's comforting to know that there's a cop nearby. But when you're driving home from the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning and you slightly roll through a stop sign because there's no one as far as the eye can see, and then suddenly a cruiser jumps out of nowhere, it raises a question: who exactly is being served there? Ticketing a taxpayer that contributes to an officer's salary in such a sneaky way for doing something so benign doesn't really help law enforcement's favorability now, does it? In the 1960s and 70s, rising crime, civil unrest, and mass immigration pushed law enforcement to become a little bit more militarized and defensive. By the 1980s and 90s, violent crime peaked and tough-on-crime policies dominated. This is also when immigration enforcement hardened. In 2003, after 9/11, immigration enforcement was folded into the newly created Department of Homeland Security, and ICE was officially formed. After the 1990s, crime dropped dramatically, but trust didn't rise. Why? Well, cameras, policing and immigration enforcement stopped being abstract ideas and started being recorded. So today we're left with a paradox. Less crime than 40 years ago, but you have ICE with broader authority than ever before, more surveillance than any point in history. The net result is less trust across the board, which is unfortunate. Most cops aren't villains, and most civilians aren't criminals. So at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get through this thing called life. So how about we all just try a little bit harder to be nicer to each other? And to any cop out there watching this, it's okay to cut someone a break from time to time. Cheers.
Wade Martin's video thingy.
Oh, God.
Don't subscribe.
UMBT.